Alright, so for Kanai today, I want to talk about running. Everyone probably knows a significant amount about running. I just think that it's pretty relevant just because the popularity of people doing 5Ks, 10Ks, mud runs. I just saw upstairs was posted like 3 events in November, January, February for like trail runs that I assume probably like a decent amount of clients will probably participate in if they're interested. I don't know how many of the instructors are going to participate in them. But again, I feel it's relevant because a lot of people like to run, a lot of people compete in 5Ks, 10Ks, stuff like that, but they're probably not as competitive or, you know, completing the course as fast as they would like. But more so probably just inconsistencies and inefficiency in training for running. So what I want to talk about is just, first off, what pros and cons are of running just in general. People seem to have mixed feelings on running, especially like long distance running, not so much sprinting and stuff like that. Also, chronic injuries that occur from just running long distance week after week after day. How to avoid, treat those chronic injuries and still be able to hopefully run while doing that. And then different types of programming for different types of running. Again, distance running probably being the main focus of that for, again, the same reason before people who are competing in distance runs. Some sprint programming, and then some programming that involves running for team sports. And so that's basically what I'm going to be talking about today. First, I wanted to go over pros and cons. Just looking for some group participation if anyone has, wants to chime in on what they think pros or cons.
Increase road capacity.
Okay.
You would go there.
Anyone else have anything that they want to throw on there? Anyone? No? Okay. So I had a list. Aerobic capacity, increasing that is one of the pros that I have on there. Increasing bone mass density. Now, a lot of the pros that come from running can still be applicable to other forms of exercising, but since we're talking about running today, I'm going to put it on the run list. Conveniency, it can be done anywhere, anytime, any place. All you got to do is step out your door and you can run anywhere. It's a great form of just like stress release, things like that. Sometimes people just like to run, and again, the same thing kind of works with just working out in general strength training. That stuff can be stress release too. But again, we're talking about running today, so a stress release. There's the runner's high, quote unquote runner's high, that people tend to experience after running, a long distance or a hard run or a fast run or a race. So we have runner's high. I think it's a great way to train the mind, just to focus. Sometimes a lot of people say that they don't want to go out and run X amount of miles or X amount of minutes, whatever, because it's boring, it's tedious, it's too long, it's not fun, it's not entertaining enough, I guess. So I feel it's a great way to train the mind to not only focus, but running, especially if you're running fast or running a long distance, it can be pretty challenging. So it's kind of almost like pushing through that, pushing through that wall of determination to run further, run faster, run harder, things like that. Cons. Anyone have any cons? I'm sure there's plenty.
Don't like cardio.
Okay, don't like cardio. Thanks, Steve. Anyone else?
Impact.
Okay. Impact on the body,
Yeah.
assuming you're eating. Anyone else?
Doesn't transition to strength.
Okay. Let's put in there strength. Anything else? No? Okay. So I'll kind of keep it with that for right now. Don't like cardio, I mean, that's pretty obvious. Impact? What's that?
Takes a lot of time.
Okay. I guess it depends on how long you're running, or
I mean, if you cycle, you'll see that you can cover huge distances efficiently versus running. So if you've done both, running is like so freaking slow.
Well, yeah, I mean, obviously, you know, you're not gonna run as long as you're cycling. I mean, they both take, you know, long times, but if you're looking at triathlons, cycling is always going to be twice the distance of running, just because you have, okay, 3 times the distance of running. I mean, you have a machine to use, so obviously that's going to be more efficient than the human body. So impact on the body, you know, over time, you know, if you're just running all the time, you know, day after day, and you're not taking care of your body, it can be degenerative on joints in the body, bones in the body. So, you know, definitely it can have a negative impact on the body. Like I said, it doesn't, you know, correlate with strength. And that's true if you're not doing any strength training and all you're doing is just long distance running. I mean, you look at marathon runners, Olympic distance runners, they're just, you know, the Ethiopians are just skinny. They don't have much muscle. They look ripped up, but that's just because they don't have any body fat either. No body fat, no muscle. So, and in a place like Platoon, we like to focus a lot on strength training. So, again, it doesn't correlate to that in strength. And like Stu said, it can be time consuming, and some people just, you know, use the excuse of not having time, but they use that excuse for, you know, not being able to come in and work out with a trainer or work out on their own also. So going back to the impact on the body, there's a lot of injuries that can occur with running. I just wanted to touch on a few that I think were probably the most common and the most detrimental to running and preventing people from continuing to run or run faster. First one is IT band syndrome. Everyone, you know, here I'm sure is pretty familiar with all these chronic injuries. IT band syndrome, just inflammation of the IT band. A lot of times, or pretty much all the time, it's just pain on like the lateral aspect of the knee. Sometimes there might be like a snapping or a popping sound with that, and that can be pretty painful. I mean, you're not going to want to run if you have pain in your IT band. Shin splints. Shin splints are basically just a description of pain along the shin, but there's really two types of shin splints. It's medial tibial stress syndrome, which is just irritation of the attachment points of tendons to bone, and then exercise-induced compartment syndrome. Stress fractures, that's basically just repeated abuse of any impact exercise with, you know, not giving your body enough time to rest, recover. Just like muscles, bones, and then, you know, they adjust and adapt to the stress that we put on our body. So if you're running, you know, X amount of miles a week every single day, you're not giving your body any time to rest over time. Stress fractures, they can tend to occur, and they're always, you know, going to be in either in the foot or the shin area. Achilles tendonitis, that's another one that basically is another overuse injury. It comes with inflexibility and basically doing too much too soon, or if you haven't, you know, run a long time and you just go hammer, you know, a hard run, or you're not flexible enough and you're always hammering. That's, you know, something that can occur, and that's super detrimental because if your Achilles can't function, you can't even walk. Plantar fasciitis, that's the last one, and basically, in athletes and runners anyway, it's just thought that it's just, you know, overuse and repeated pounding on the feet, basically traumatizing the fascia that's in your foot, and that's not fun at all. Having plantar fasciitis, I've had that before, and you just have, I mean, inflexibility is another big cause of that. Inflexibility and overuse. Any questions so far? No.
You could add on there. There's issues with bladder issues,
Yeah.
long-term running bladder issues.
Yeah.
Rest pain.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and again, there's a whole bunch of issues that are involved with running. I just wanted to touch on a few, you know, just more so the ones that involve, your legs that are going to stop you from running. But yeah, there are a lot of internal issues that can be caused with running and things like that. So the best way to avoid these injuries if you're going to be running all the time, number one is flexibility training. I try to really stress that with a lot of people in general, but people who I know are runners. Most people don't really stretch at all anyway, and so that's one of the main reasons why they're getting injured often, and they're not happy about that. So flexibility training is something that I always really try to stress with a lot of clients. Strength training, obviously, the stronger you are, the less likely you are to be injured. So strength training in all the right places, core obviously, but the muscles in your legs. So those two combined are probably going to be obviously the best two ways to avoid these chronic injuries, overuse injuries from running. And I didn't write this on there, but giving yourself time to rest too is a great way to just avoid these running injuries. Some people, I know that there's people here who know there's outdoor clients who run to outdoor, work out, run home. People do all sorts of crazy stuff. Don't give themselves any time to rest, run every single day, work out every single day, because they're almost like, it can become addicting. So they think they're doing the right thing by just hammering all the time, but really all they're doing is just wearing and tearing their body down, and eventually they're probably not going to be able to run at all anyway. Foam rolling, we're big advocates of foam rolling here. So prior to running, foam rolling just help everything loose, keep loose, and get ready for your runs. So foam rolling. So and with these type of chronic injuries, the most that you can really do is take time off, rest, ice with certain injuries like shin splints and stress fractures. But that's all that you can really do. If you decide to continue to work out and run with these injuries, it's not going to do anything but just progressively get worse and worse. And then these individuals, clients, whoever they aren't going to be able to do anything at all.
At gear, there's a lot of clients that
like
old shoes,
proper gear, yeah.
Yeah.
So that's a great way to. I'll just put clothes. Yeah, that's another important one. Having the right shoes, right clothes when running. A lot of people nowadays tend to have flat feet, so having the right shoes or having inserts, that will just help assist with any issues like plantar fasciitis, Achilles tendonitis, stuff like that. That can be prevented, or it can just be progressively, it can get better, and then still be able to continue running and exercising, doing the things that they like to do. So basically, the biggest part of this whole Kanai that I feel is the most important is just the programming, because I feel like, everyone pretty much knows all this stuff, including the programming, but like I said, a lot of people really like to compete in distance runs and Tough Mudders and CMC and things like that, and a lot of people just think that going out and hammering at basically the same pace every single time, no matter the distance of the run, they're always just trying to run hard, and they think that that's probably the best way to improve their time or run further, run faster, is just to hammer all the time, go hard as you can, and they think that that's the best way to get results. And obviously it's not, there needs to be some sort of varying up of your training as well as resting and strength training and stuff like that. So there's really, I think 5 good ways to, or 5 different things to implement into a running program if you're distance running anyway. So the first, just a long, easy run. It might be longer than your expected race or event or whatever it is, but just easy. Not anything that's going to really fatigue you too much. Something that's going to get your legs moving, get you moving in that running motion, loosen everything up, keep you on your feet, keep your body, going through those motions. Fartlek runs, I'm sure most of you probably know what that is, and that's basically, it's a continuous run with intervals interspersed throughout the run. So you could say, you're going to go on a 45-minute run. Every 5 minutes, I want you to go hard for three minutes, all out for 3 minutes, or pick your pace up to 85% of your top speed for 3 minutes, and then bring it back down. And it's just continuous intervals interspersed over a longer continuous run. Just interval training itself, you can do that anywhere, but I really feel like track is like the most ideal place to do that. And it could be anything from mile repeats to half-mile repeats, 400-meter runs with plenty of rest in between. And those runs are probably going to be more at a higher level of intensity. Again, because you're taking that rest in between. Tempo runs, that's probably most relative to what most people probably do when they go out and run on a daily basis. They probably do a tempo run, which is just going almost at like your max speed or your race day speed, maybe like a little less than that, 90 to 95%. And that's how, it's good to have those runs in there, but you don't want to have them all the time. Again, that's just wearing down your body, it's fatiguing your body. You can't always just do tempo runs. You have to give your body, time to rest in general, but time to adjust and do other types of training. And just doing run drills, different types of drills that help with just efficiency of running, technique, knee lift, hip flexor strength, stuff like that. So that's for the distance running. Sprinting obviously is going to be completely different. Now, and this is in regards mostly to just running. I'll get into the team sports stuff in a second. But sprinting, so basically in regards to like track and field, you want to do a lot of speed work. And obviously, if you're a sprinter, you want to work on your turnover rate, which is basically just how fast your legs are cycling through each stride. And there are drills that you can do to enhance that turnover rate, improve that. Speed and strength endurance. The reason why those are important is if you look at like Olympic sprinters, like they're just huge. They're strong. They have a lot of speed and strength endurance. So if you're running something like a 200 meters or a 400 meter race, obviously you're going to be going fast. But if you have 100 meter speed but you don't have any endurance, that's not going to do you any good in an event like that. So that's why you need to work on not only maintaining your speed for longer than or equal to your given event or race, but also work on just your overall strength. Run technique, run technique is important in running in general, but I think it's even more so important for sprinting. Again, you're working on your turnover rate, you're working on your form, your arm drive. So I think it just helps you become more of an efficient runner. And then again, run drills. There are plenty of run drills that can be done, again, to improve turnover rate, quickness, getting your foot to the ground and off the ground as fast as possible, working on knee lift, working on arm drive, not crossing your arms over your body. A lot of people do that, which is going to throw your gait off while you're running. So that's the distance running and the sprinting portion. Team sports, so this is going to be a little bit different. And there could be individual sports like tennis or something that would basically fall underneath this. But team sports, most sports are going to involve short bouts of running with a little bit of rest interspersed. Or the game might still be going on, you might still be on the field or on the floor, but you might not be running at a certain time, like in soccer. If the ball's at the end of the field, you're not going to be doing much. Or basketball, you could be a center standing down low and the guard has the ball up top. So with sports, sports like that, football and on all the other team sports, there's a lot of fast, explosive running done with short bouts of rest or little movement involved. So the best type of workouts, as far as running is concerned, to making it a more efficient athlete in those aspects. Intervals, again, something again, they can be done on the track or they can be done on the street, they can be done on the field. And this doesn't have to be. These intervals that I'm talking about are more so just like straight runs. It could be 50-meter runs or 20-second all-out runs with X amount of rest in between. Sprints with direction change. So, and that would be applicable to football, lacrosse, soccer. Again, most other sports, because running is really the only sport where you're really just running in a straight line. So sprints with direction change, using cones, using landmarks, to make sure you switch directions and kind of mimic what you would be doing in that sport. I think an occasional endurance run is good for team sports. Again, just to build up overall endurance. I would never say that they should do any more than really 20 to 30 minutes of consistent long distance running, because it just wouldn't really be relevant to their sport, because most athletes aren't going all out hard or moving, at a really hard pace doing their sport for 20 to 30 minutes straight. There's always going to be some type of break or rest or timeout or a moment where you're just standing around for a couple seconds waiting to be active back in, an active participant back in the game. And then sport-specific drills, again, this is just in reference to running, so mimicking, joint angle, specificity, just mimicking the moves that you're going to be doing in the game, on the field, on the court, at a high level of intensity, just trying to mimic as much as possible the stress that your body's going through, during that game time or what have you. So, so that's the run programming, and I feel like it's important to help our clients with these type of things and give them these ideas on different ways to run or to work out or to get in shape for their race or their sport, because it's just really a lack of knowledge most times, and I really think that people are misguided on how they should be improving their run times or their participation in sports. So I think programming is definitely the biggest part of this, but I think it's really important to try and help clients implement different ways of running on their own. I mean, especially just for the clients who really want to run. Most people here aren't really participating in team sports for the most part. And, anyone who's going to be doing running is just going to be running on their own or competing in Broad Street Run or half marathons or triathlons. So I think it's definitely would be to their advantage for them to learn different methods of running and training and things like that. So, any questions?
How much of an effect would just proper running form have on, I guess, cutting down on injuries, period? No matter the distance that you run.
Well, I think there are people who they might do a lot of like heel to toe running or slamming real hard into the ground. So obviously that's creating more force. So something like that. I mean, your upper body, if you have a funky form with your arms or something like that, that's not really gonna cause an injury. It would probably more so be just the pounding, the efficiency of running, on the balls of your feet as opposed to, running heel to toe or slamming your heels into the ground. And also too, I think when people fatigue, they try to, I mean, they probably don't do it on purpose, but they just naturally, probably slam a little harder into the ground. So really, I mean, just that's the only thing that I could really think of as far as running technique, learning to run lighter on your feet and on the balls of your feet. I think that, as far as form goes, that would be the only way that I could think of that would cut down on those overuse injuries.
Can you talk about the pose method as opposed to other methods that you've
Pose method.
used?
Dr. Romanoff.
I'm not sure.
Oh, who's Greg?
Who's Greg?
Yeah.
Call us mom.
Will you
It's
just,
the whole idea that you fall into your running and it's that you're not fully extending your leg out in front of your center of mass. And so that's what you're
Oh.
heel striking, you're falling with your mid to forefoot. So you're falling in, you're using gravity more instead of actually using your legs, and you don't stop it with your legs.
Yeah, it's not about
You're
lifting
like-
up your legs.
yeah. So you
So that as opposed to what?
regular running.
Regular one, other.
will you
Well,
just,
I mean, I think that's just pretty much just a natural form of running. Like you're kind of just going to go with gravity and your momentum. I think that as far as, so I still might be a little confused on it, but from what Jenny said, you were saying as opposed to just like
Heel toe.
Heel toe.
Or, you're striking forward with this part of your foot.
Oh, all right. Well, I mean, if you think about it too, this is just something that I had always been taught. If you're running heel toe, you're always basically stopping your stride. You're almost halting your stride, and you're running 5 miles. You're taking a lot of steps, thousands of steps probably. And if you're going heel toe every time, as opposed to just off the balls of your feet, number one, this is breaking your stride. You're gonna have a little more spring just off the balls of your feet. And number two, it doesn't seem like a long time, but going like this is just that much longer than just coming right off of your toe. So that would probably save you some time as well. So I don't know if that answers your question or not.
I think you just made the corner of the market
he does it, most people don't necessarily do it naturally. I think he was just, he's just explaining.
And there are like drills and stuff. 'cause I remember,
I've never, I mean, it's funny, because like, before I even like read about pose, like no one ever taught me to run heel toe, so is that just like,
Well, yeah, I was just saying more so like, I don't think anyone ever teaches you to run heel
yeah,
toe.
but
because-
I have clients
no,
who
they
talk
used to
about
teach heel toe, yeah.
But-
I don't think they teach that, they just, people naturally do it. 'Cause
Yeah, I
you're
think that's-
striding longer and you're gonna end up
I have clients
heel
that
toe.
say like, oh, you know, we're supposed to run heel toe right, I'm like, and
No.
there's so many problems with that.
Yeah, I don't think, I don't
I
see
just
that, yeah, I don't think that there's any
Like,
ever,
shoes, like the thickness of the.
I don't think there's any ever, situation where you're running and you should be running heel toe. I mean, I think
Jay
this is,
just made a good point. A lot of the shoes are designed for heel strap.
oh yeah, like
Is that what the cushion is?
with a
That-
thicker
You mean the-
sole.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Like these?
Does Dave
Yeah.
Rule have his New Balance
You're
shoes?
still gonna
Exactly.
do it though,
Oh.
even if you have.
What's that? So do you have your New Balance
If
shoes?
Well,
you
what-
Can
try
you show
to
what
heel
the
strap,
shoe-
it's
proper
not
heel
as
cushion is?
well, but also
From a
with
heel
the
strap.
shoe, you're gonna feel that
Today.
impact on your heel a lot more because it's gonna force you, with a minimalist shoe, it's gonna force you to go up on your toes. Because it's gonna hurt if you're landing heel toe
Yeah.
in a minimus or the 5-finger shoes. It's not gonna feel good, so it's gonna force you to run up on your toes. I think that's also one of the purposes of the minimus shoes. I don't know if anyone here read the book Born to Run. Did you ever read that? So in that book, it's basically, they were saying it's more of a natural feel. You're gonna automatically, with those 5-finger shoes, you're automatically gonna be lighter on your feet. You're gonna strike lighter on your feet, lighter up on your toes, because you don't have as much fabric or material in between your foot and the ground. So that's another reason why, that's kind of a negative thing about, I think, with shoes with so much cushion to them. You have all that cushion, so you're slamming into the ground, hard, and you don't even realize it. And it's just an overuse injury where, I mean, I can definitely see the benefits of something like, the minimus or the 5-fingers. Now, obviously, they're probably meant more for trail running as opposed to, street running, but most people are doing street running anyway. So trail running is going to be, that's another, if you could run trails or grass more often, that might cut down on chronic overuse injuries as well. But most people are just running on the street or on the sidewalk because, you have to, it's more convenient as opposed to driving to a state park or driving to, an open field. Like, you could do laps on the field across the street, and cut down on injuries just using the grass there, because it's probably like a half-mile loop. So yeah, that's my take on that.
What are some asymmetries in like the legs or the lower extremity, even in the hips, that one would have to have like a just terrible gait, like a running strength?
So you're basically just asking like form-wise,
Yeah.
like what are different? Sometimes people, I mean, there's always pronation with the foot, but sometimes people tend to, their stride might go outwards, instead of keeping it in a direct line. People just do funky stuff with their strides. Sometimes people step out, sometimes people step across. I've seen people who always clip their legs, like clip their ankles when they run. And a lot of that too just comes from the motions of your upper body. A lot of people run like this, so that's gonna that's gonna throw your entire beat off. That's gonna throw your legs off. So, I mean, keeping everything linear, keeping your stride in a straight line, keeping your arms moving in a straight line is just gonna make your form more efficient, which is gonna make you run faster. Does that help at all?
So, like, what kind of stretches would you recommend somebody who's running and, like, I see a lot of people out there running, they're like, something like this.
Yeah. I mean, that's
glute.
That's less to do with stretching and more to do with strengthening.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of people who have knock knees or bringing their knees in, they have weak glutes. So they need to strengthen those glutes to like bring their legs out. I mean, you have like a varus or like a valgus stress on the knee. So that's either a knock knee or like a bull legged. And that's usually something that is weak somewhere else, not that something's necessarily tight.
yeah.
Something not tracking properly.
I couldn't think of any like specific stretches, that would be beneficial to make you run better, make your form better. I mean, you would just be more of an efficient runner if you were more flexible because you wouldn't tighten up as much. But yeah, strength training and again, just working on drills, so there's plenty of drills that you can do, you know, to just work on knee lift, work on running straight, work on, you know, striking quick and then, you know, releasing, work on bringing your heel through your butt and landing not too far in front of you. Some people tend to overstride. So there's no like specific stretches, you know, that I can think of that would be beneficial towards that. I feel like that would just be more of a form strength issue.
I think you just need to like test their movement patterns and see weakness that way. Because I mean, a lot of times people were never taught to run properly, so if they don't know how to do it, they're not automatically going to do it. So number one, like, are they able to do it? And then if they're not, then what is their issue?
Yeah. And the other thing is intensity, because as Steve said, they're always running as hard as they can. They can't correct those things themselves because they're always fatigued. Like all my clients that run, they're always running close to pace, top pace. So you can't change your form at top pace. You have to run slower to be able to fix those things. So I suggest to do the things that Steve says, like break the session down into something where they can control. It's like, okay, you're going to run an interval, but like during that interval, I want you to focus on keeping your feet straight. And it's really difficult. Like they pour sweat because they can't do it. So that's what I do. But it's always intensity. It's like because they're running so fast.
Well, to touch on kind of what Jason said too, I know like a lot of coaches nowadays too, they videotape their runners. And then, you know, they break it down in slow motion and say, you know, this is the problem with your form, this is what we need to fix. And so they basically break down their form, again, to help them just be more efficient runners. Because form is that important, especially when you're more at an elite level as opposed to just like starting out in grade school, you know, track and field or distance running or any other team sports. But I know a lot of coaches, they kind of use video cameras and stuff to stress the importance of form and improve that so they can just be better overall athletes.
Can you just go over some of the things you're looking for specifically with technique for sprinting versus like distance running and how that would be different?
Well, really the biggest thing there's always, knee lift is always really important. So, you know, hip flexor strength and flexibility obviously is going to be important for that. The more you can lift your knee, the further you're going to get with each stride, the more efficient you're going to run. A lot of people, when they get tired, or people don't even do it in general, they're kind of just, you know, running like this. They're not having much knee lift, so they have really short strides, so they're not getting as much out of each stride. As far as sprinting, really just you know, speed work as far as cycling through, making sure that heel is coming as close to the butt as you can, and that knee's getting up, and that's going to work with, you know, that's going to be important with distance running too. But it's just, again, it's more of an efficient turnover when you're sprinting, and just working on, you know, quick strike. One drill that I know I always used to do that I thought was a good drill was just called a fast call. You would stand there and you would try to come just down off the ground as fast as you can, and so really I think that's the main difference between the sprinting and the distance running anyway, as far as the importance of form and technique. It's just that turnover rate, but also that cycle, making sure that you're really getting your foot all the way through, coming all the way up, and, you know, you get more distance out of each stride. So if you look at, you know, again, if you've ever seen like slow motion of like Carl Lewis, his stride was just ridiculous because his turnover cycle, like just the cycle of his leg was so efficient that it was just perfect basically. And so it looked like with each stride, like when you break it down slow, it looked like with each stride he's almost like extending like 10 feet. Like obviously that's a little exaggeration, but that's almost what it looked like when you break it down in slow motion, because his stride was so, his cycle was so efficient, he was getting so much space with each stride that he was just able to cover ground faster than, you know, other people. And that's the same thing with like Usain Bolt. He's a freak because he's so tall for his event, but his stride is so good that he can just cover so much. He can cover so much more ground faster than anybody else, you know. So.
Could you beat Greg in a race?
I think I could beat Greg in a race.
What event?
We could take it to the
Didn't
track.
somebody race Greg and beat him?
No.
Everybody did.
Yeah.
Joe McBride beat him.
Did he really?
That's
Yeah.
not true, I hope.
Yeah.
Yeah, but can you catch a football?
No.
Right, can you?
I didn't know that wasn't a If it was a good thing.
That's
Can we
true.
set up a race between you and Wagner Marcel?
Huh.
If it's not hurdles, if it's not hurdles.
Yep, and we're dropping names.
Oh,
That was the second one. That was the second
I
one.
didn't even say his name. I don't even know what I'm talking about.
Steve, what did you used to race?
400.
I bet if he had to, though, he'd be down in a
You
heartbeat.
didn't ever do hurdles?
What was your PR?
48 seconds, like 48.9, I think. I did hurdles in high school, but I didn't do it in college. So it wasn't hard.
Thanks, guys. All right, so a couple quick, this isn't a monthly meeting.